Hi. Today I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things. We're going to start a new project, and our project is called Gothic Lace Cowl, and it's from Tin Can Knits. It's a free one, so you can go and download this pattern. I've gone ahead and printed the ones. I didn't print the pictures of it, but it's really cute. It has buttons on the edge that you can button, and then there's a little bit of lace. So this is going to be our lace lesson to show you how to do lace, how to read lace charts. So I've gone ahead and printed that. You're going to need a size 8 needle. I might have too much, I do have too much cable, so I'm probably going to change that in the middle of something. You don't have to have this much cable. Maybe a 16-inch would do with this. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is a group called Knit Crate. There it is, Knit Crate. And Knit Crate is a subscription for yarn. They send you, you tell them what kind of yarn you like and the color selections that you like on general. And then every month with a charge, they send you yarn. And I generally just take, I don't choose any specific color. I let them surprise me, which has been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But this is one of the ones from, I think, last year that I've never gotten to because I didn't know what I want to make with it. But I finally got a wild hair because I know people that really like color, and this is just a little different green than I would like, but it's beautiful. It's alpaca. It's 55 merino wool, 30% baby alpaca, mulberry silk, which is a very nice mix in here. This is considered a worsted wool. So anything you have with a worsted pattern, you can do with this. Now it comes like this, and you have to cake it yourself. So I do have a cake winder and the tools to do that. So I just wound this morning, and I will wind this one later, but I wanted you to see how it comes. This particular wool you can go and find, Aldine Wools by Knit Crate. You may be able to actually find this for sale without, you know, having to join Knit Crate. You do get a percentage off if you join their club, and anything else you want to buy, you get a percentage off. So it's just kind of a nice way to be surprised every month with a different kind of wool. Their booklet comes with several patterns, and the patterns include both knit and crochet. So if you're not a knitter, the crochet ones are there also. So this is something I would suggest. Just go look for it, Knit Crate, and see what you think of it. Okay, so the other thing I have are my scissors, just in case. Now, let's talk about the pattern before we actually start anything, because some of this you're going to be able to do on your own. So I blew up the first part of page 1 to show you what we need. The sizing is going to be, if you're making the short or long cowl, it's approximately 10 inches wide. It's 22 inches long if you're making the cowl, and if you're making the scarf, then it's 8 inches wide by 60 inches long. So depending on what you want to make, you'll choose what you're going to cast on and how you're going to work it. It calls for a worsted, which is an Aran weight, which is a number 4 for those of you who know the numbers. You need 200 yards for a short cowl and 400 yards for a long cowl or a scarf. So if you're making the scarf, you would need 2 of these. Both of these you would need. These are 220 yards each, so you'll have a little bit left over if you're going to make the scarf. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need a size 8 needle. So I have my size 8s, and these are the cubic needles, so they fit nicely in my hand. I think I have too long of a cable, so I'm going to get started with this with you, but then I'm going to slip down to a size 16, a shorter cable, because for a couple reasons. This is going to be back and forth, almost as if you're knitting on the 2 straight needles, but we're not. We're going to go Yeah, and I think this will probably be big enough. We're going to go ahead and knit on circulars. The more you use circulars, the more you'll get used to them. So I just suggest, I think I have 4 sets of straight, and that's because I make patterns that have pockets in the front, and that's where I need my straights. Otherwise, I don't knit with them. I never knit with straights. But that's a personal preference. You're welcome to do whatever makes you happy. So you're going to need some stitch markers. I don't see where my stitch markers are. We'll find them. And you're going to need a darning needle, and then you're going to need 8 buttons for your cowl if you're making the cowl, and a 5mm crochet hook if you want to crochet the button details, and you'll find that as we go along. So I'm going to put this aside, and then we'll talk some more about some things. So then this is page 3 of our pattern, and it tells you how to do your pattern if you're going to do the cowl, and then if you're going to do the scarf. So I've gone ahead and highlighted because I want to make the cowl. Now, last time we talked about when we were doing cables, we talked about the charts. Now, I'm not crazy about cable charts. I have used them, and they slow me down a lot, so I'm not happy with them. It's just the opposite when I do lace. Now, again, this is a personal preference, and if you like charts for one and the wording for the next one, then you do you, whatever's easiest for you. But it has not only the lace chart, it also has the written instructions how to do these. So it has the key, the key and abbreviations are down here, and what each of these mean. And there are some notes. So you need to realize that all the wrong side or the even numbered rows are exactly the same. They are a knit 3, purl to the last 3 stitches, and then knit those last 3 stitches. So we're going to have like a garter stitch going up the sides, and we're going to have a garter stitch at the bottom and at the top, and that's basically the edging with the lace contained inside of that. So, just like when we learned to read patterns before, if you have some sticky notes, and I don't see my sticky notes, I'm just going to get a piece of this. You can go ahead and put a sticky note here so that you know you're working on round 1. You can also use a counter. You can also just make tick marks on the side. And I've done that a lot. Like when I finished row 1, I'd make a row 1 tick. Excuse me. Oh, allergy season. And then you can also use another one to find all of your commas, because that's what you'll do first. You'll knit 2, move it to the next comma, then you're going to knit 2 together. So that's if you're using the word chart, the words, the written out words. If you're using a chart, and I'm going to be using the chart, I really like lace charts. They're very easy to read. There are very few things you need to know. And I've gone ahead and I've blown it up so that we can see it just a little bit better than on that little one. So when you look at a chart, you have these 2 dark lines. And what that tells you is you're going to do a repeat in those lines. And it tells you you're going to work this repeat 5 times if you're making a cowl, 4 times if you're just making the scarf. So what you'll do is you will start at this edge, and then once you get here, I would put a stitch marker, and then you will work this, put another stitch marker, work it again, work it again, work it again, work it again. That would be the fifth time if you're making the cowl, and then you will work this. Now remember, you have 3 knits on each side. Okay, when you look at this chart, this is very easy. Anytime you see a chart, even if it's a cable chart, it's pretty much the same. The only thing that is different with a cable chart is that the cables are drawn differently. And I don't have a cable chart to, maybe I do, hang on, let me see. No, I don't have a cable chart to show you here, but we did that in our video. Let me pull this and see. Panels. Nope, that's another project. Okay, I don't have one. But anyhow, sometimes they'll look like this. And then you'll have... And those are completely different for cables. So we're not going to do that. But we are going to look at this because a lot of these transfer back to a cable pattern, except for these are isolated to cables. Okay, so if you have an open box, and each of these boxes represents a stitch. This would be row 1, row 2, like you know, we are going to knit 3, purl to the end, and then knit 3 at the end. So they only give you the odd rows because that's going to make your design. So if we're working on row 1, let's go ahead and I'll cover row 2. And this open box, if we look down at our legend, the open box means to knit. So that's easy enough to remember. We're just going to knit 2 stitches. Then we have a slash, a backward slash. And if we look down at the backward slash, we have knit 2 together. So we're going to knit 2 stitches together. And we've done this when we did our cables. We learned how to knit 2 together. The next one is a circle, and a circle tells you that you're going to do yarn over, and I will show you how to do a yarn over when we get knitting our project. That's because you've knit 2 stitches together, you've downed the number of stitches that you have, so you have to put them back on in order to keep your pattern from going like this. We want to keep it going straight up and down, perpendicular. So in order to make up for that stitch that we've knit together with the other stitch, we do a yarn over and that becomes a stitch. The next one is a knit, and then we have a forward slash. So our forward slash is going to be a slip slip knit. And this tells us that they want us to slip 1 knitwise, slip 1 knitwise, the second stitch, and then we're going to put the 2 slipped stitches back on our left hand needle and knit those together through the back loop. Now, we have learned a shortcut in our last lessons on cables that we don't have to transfer it back to our needle. So I will show you that again. Now here we come to the dark line, and that means we're going to repeat. So we're going to follow this legend once, and if you have a stitch counter, fine. If not, just mark 1 there. Also, put your stitch markers between these because it will help you to keep your pattern from, you won't make as many mistakes if you know where you're at in a stitch marker. So we're going to repeat those either 4 or 5 times, then we're going to do this, then we'll knit our 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with this. And I'm going to go get my stitch markers. I will be back in just a minute. Okay, so I've gone ahead and gotten my stitch markers, and I'm just going to leave them open because I do use them a lot in the beginning. You're welcome to use your sticky pads if you have them to keep track. I recommend getting this little tool from, it comes from Knit Picks, and it's kind of neat. It closes up, but it has, I don't remember the name of it right now, so I'm sorry, I'll try and find it before I publish this so that I can give you a link to it. It opens up, and there's a little dealie to keep it from closing completely. It holds your pattern with magnets, and then you can just move this as you go. So I'm going to go ahead and use mine, and if you have one, feel free to use it. It is a really nice tool. Okay, let's move that over there. So the first thing that we need to do with our pattern is we need to now, depending on what you're making. If you're making the scarf, you will cast on 41 stitches. If you're making the cowl, you will cast on 49 stitches. So 41 for the scarf, 49 for the cowl. Okay? And I haven't decided. That makes it a little weird, doesn't it? So I'm just going to cast on till I get to 41, and by that time maybe I'll know what I'm doing. Okay, we know that when we start with our yarn, oh, this yarn feels so soft. It's the silk, mulberry silk in there. So when we first start to cast on, we take our tail and we hold it between our fingers. You don't want a very big one. You know, you don't want to do that because you might start knitting with that wrong. So let's just make ourselves a little tail. We're going to wrap 2 fingers once. And then the second wrap, I pull back further and I hold it with my ring finger on that hand. I take my size 8 needle, I go under the first one, over the second one, and then I just pull that through to make a slip knot. And you can see I don't have much tail, and that will get sewn in later. So the other thing that I will do is I'm going to put a few of these out because we have to cast on so many stitches. I don't want to cast on 30 stitches and someone come to my door and I have to go, and once I come back from the door then I have to count and see how many I am. So my trick is I cast on so many and then I will put a stitch marker, so that I know each stitch marker, and sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 25. It depends on how much you want to count. So I'm going to do 10 just to show you. So we already know we have a stretchy cast on, and this is my favorite cast on. There are others, and I have used others depending on what I'm making, but the things we've been making lately are stretchy. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, and yeah, I pulled them all off my needle. Let's start again, Carla. So we have 1. The silk is very sticky. I may actually decide to use wooden needles, because wooden needles, more so than the metal ones, wooden needles will actually grip the yarn just a little bit. It doesn't tear your yarn, but it catches those sticky fibers, and especially with something like silk. Silk is very, alpaca is very slippery, silk is very slippery. The merino wool is not so much, but it always helps to have more needles for you to use. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I have to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Now if I had 30 or 40 stitches, I didn't want to have to count those 30 or 40 stitches all over again. So once I have 10 on, and you can make it 20, 15, just remember how many you do in a set and keep it consistent. If you do 10 the whole way through, so that each time you see one of these you can go, oh, that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 49. Okay, good. All right, so let's go ahead and cast on some more. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm going to put another one on. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and let you cast on the rest of your stitches. Remember, if you're following your pattern, 49 for a cowl, 41 for the scarf. Okay, I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, So I've gone ahead and cast on 49. I'm going to make a cowl with the buttons and the buttonholes. I think that's kind of pretty. And if you look on their website, they give you pictures of both of them. So what we're supposed to do first is we're going to work, we're going to knit 8 rows, and that's knit each side so that we have that garter stitch effect. Now, if you've watched me before, I have shown you how to make your edges very nice and neat, and they don't have those little bumps. They have more like a crochet stitch on them. So I'm going to show you how to do that on this also. I have, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40, 49. Okay. So in order to do that, I make sure that my working yarn is in front of my needle, and I slip that first stitch from my left hand needle to my right hand needle, and then I take my yarn, my working yarn, and I put it between my needles and I go to the back because I am knitting. So since we are supposed to knit 8 rows, we're just going to go ahead and knit all of these. Now I've come to my first stitch marker, and I'm just going to take it off for now because we're not making our pattern yet. Once we start into our pattern, then I will put them back on. This was just to help me to know how many stitches I had cast on my needle the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and knit these through with you, this first row. And I didn't find my stitch counter, so I'm going to make tick marks today. There is no right, there is no wrong. There is just skills to learn. And the way you do a skill might be completely different from the way I do a skill, but as long as it comes out the way it's supposed to, what's wrong with that? That's why a lot of people get frustrated. I've had people tell me I'm purling wrong. No, I'm not purling wrong. For you, it might be wrong. For me, it works best to do it the way I do it. And if you've watched any of my other videos where I show you how I purl, you just have to remember on the second row, the next side, you have to be aware of how your stitches are laying on your needle so that you know whether to knit in the back stitch or in the front stitch. So as you can see, as long as my piece comes out the way it's supposed to according to the pattern, you can have personality changes in your knitting even, and that kind of makes it fun. And the reason I've told you this when we did the cable work, I do my purls that way all the time so that I don't get confused when I'm doing different work, but it is especially helpful in cable work to purl the way I do. Okay, I have my first row done. Now, I have gone ahead and gotten my wooden needles and a shorter cable. So I'm going to show you if this bothers you to have either metal needles or a longer cable. I'm going to show you how you can change that just from here. So as I start this, I want to make sure that my yarn is in front of my needle because I'm going to slip my first stitch all the time. I'm going to slip it to my right hand needle, put my working yarn in the back, and then I'm going to go ahead and knit to the other end. Now you can see I'm using my wooden needles and my shorter cable, but it's going to be the same as if I were using the other end of my metallic needles on the long cable. And let's go ahead and finish. Oh, and you can see that's really going to be nice. It's going to be a nice wide kind of stitch fabric. The fabric's going to have some real nice definition to it. I hope you're enjoying these knitting lessons. I was doing paper for a while, and I will do more paper, but my granddaughter in Omaha wanted to learn how to knit, and I was so tickled. I told her I would do lessons with some of the things that she could learn how to knit. So I'm giving a shout out to Miss Mercy. Okay, we are almost at the end, and then I'm going to show you that we can put our metal needles away, or if you're just using the same set of needles, that's okay too. Not a big deal. You didn't have to change. I just wanted to be able to show you that you can change needles without messing everything up. It's not a big deal. Okay, so I have knit 2 rows, and I'm going to go ahead and mark that up here. 1, 2, because we're knitting 8 rows. And you can see my long cable and my metal needles are free now, so I will put those away in just a little bit. But I do want to talk to you about this. As you do each of these 8 knit rows, make sure and slip that first stitch purlwise, because as we get further along in our knitting, you will see how lovely that makes the edge. And since we're not sewing this together, it actually is going to look very finished, very professional, quite pretty. And so I'm going to go ahead and start knitting my 3rd row. I am going to end this video for now because I'm going to leave you to yourself to knit those first 8 rows. Now, if you're making the scarf, remember you're going to knit 8 rows also. So everybody should have 8 rows when I come back for our next video. And we are going to set the first row up for our lace, which means that you will need your stitch markers, because I put them in between each set of lace as I knit it. That way I can keep, I have tried to knit lace without stitch markers, and this is when I was first learning how to knit lace. I was making a big shawl, and I got so confused. I had to rip the entire thing out.